Hello everyone, today we're taking a look at the Eachine Moneagle. It's a 5-inch display. It's an IPS display, 800 by 480. It has dual antennas and receivers inside of this, so you can get diversity if you wanted to change out the receivers. There really probably isn't a whole lot of benefit when you're using two of the stock antennas. My shirt, if you're wondering, that's SN Hobbies out of Canada, snhobbies.com. Check them out if you're in the area or you need to look for some parts. I know it was going to come up because this is a very reflective screen, and that might be one of its downsides because it does not come with a sunshade. It does come with a few accessories. This mounting adapter looks kind of like a cell phone adapter. It's actually big and does fit. And then it's got this ball joint here. Unfortunately, this hole that they have in this rubber grommet for mounting is bigger than the bars that we have on our radio. I did find it fit on one that has the extra plastic bit kind of clamped to it or screwed to the bar, but it came in at an awkward angle, so if you were holding the radio, at least what I think of holding the radio naturally, the screen wasn't dead on your eye line. So this may take some adaptation to actually work for you. And this is the only mounting that it does come with. It does come with a battery lead so that you could power it in the field if the internal battery were to run out. I had this outside with me and I ran it for about 45 to 55 minutes constantly while I was doing some filming, a couple of different runs and fetching of quads before I wrapped it up for the day. It has the USB port right over here. Let me get my camera to focus so you can read the silk screening on there. So we've got our USB port for powering or charging. It's got the internal battery. We've also got the SD card, which is TF card. And then we've got our audio input jack, which we do have a cable that comes with for that jack. Over here on the other side, we've got our menu manipulation as well as recording because we have the DVR. Remember, it's got the SD card over here. And then we've got channel and band, and then we've got a little tiny reset. If it were to lock up, you can shove a paper clip down in there. You're feeling for a button if you happen to use this. So don't just shove it down there hard, hoping you're hitting it. Kind of go gently and see if you can feel for the button. And then once you kind of feel the button, it should click down. So that should help. It does have holes here in the back. I suspect that is for cooling purposes. You know, electronics create heat oftentimes. If you do want to get a replacement antenna, this is a look of the SMA receiver. I always get those confused, so I'll allow you to look it up. It's either RP or SMA. I always forget this one has the pin in it, so no pin in your antenna. Then of course on the top we've got our search button, which is auto search. I don't suggest you use auto search unless you know already what channel you're on. Then you can use the auto search. Then you can tell on the display whether it auto searched the correct channel. Being on the exact right channel will get you the best image as well as range. And then we have our power button, which is a long press for on and off. I failed to mention it, but it also comes with a standard USB cable, and they encourage you to use a cell phone charging brick according to the quick tip here. Using a power source greater than 7 volts will accelerate the charging speed. Of course it will. If you're looking for something like this for ride-along purposes, I would also suggest taking a look at this little thing. It's an FPV watch. I think they still sell this. I think this one was made by Eachine, but it has, I think that's the Top Sky emblem on there. I'll find it off of Banggood. I use this pretty regularly when on my little camera platform. I just mount it here so I can see what I'm pointing the cameras at. And yes, I am recording with an old cell phone. See all that tape on there? Seems to work just fine, doesn't it? Also on my bench, I use the front half of these goggles. You can see how dirty and dusty everything is. They are the Eachine 800D, the front half of the goggle, of course. And this has worked great for several years, as a matter of fact. Now, this one has something that this doesn't, which is that tripod mounting port. So that's something to consider, that your only mounting for this is that clamp and something other that you rig up. Or you could set it against something, or of course, if somebody's just watching you fly, they can of course hold on to it. So this has that as well. And I think this is a little bit less expensive, but of course this is an IPS display, this is not. So this is just a sample of me flying. You can see I've got it set up on my table where I typically fly all the time, and I'm flying the Diatone toothpick, the 4-inch edition. You can see we've got the red dot up there blinking. That is indicating that the DVR is recording. You can also see the green lettering for the channel that we're on. It does have an icon up there for the signal quality in the top left. And then over on the right, we have our battery and where it currently stands. Of course, I think this is a pretty nice display. It's not without its shortcomings when it comes to mounting that we already covered in the video. And I think for $73, it is a nice display. But it's something that you have to weigh. Does it fit the purposes that you're looking for? Typically, for me, I'm looking at these sorts of things in a ride-along capacity in order to, in other words, to show people how quads fly, how much fun I'm having, and to kind of be that ambassador to the hobby. You may want to use this panel for all sorts of other purposes as well. But that's my primary purpose in having something like this. I do have spare goggles. Not everybody is comfortable putting on a pair of goggles. Mainly because, especially with the IPD adjustment, you never know if they're seeing what they should see. You know, because some people look at it and expect it to be in HD like they're looking at their TV. And so you don't know if the IPD adjustment is just right for them, or if their expectation of looking at this screen or in a goggle is just too unrealistic. This is a look at a DVR file from the screen itself, and to give you some file information, it records. It's kind of like the Fat Shark and other DVRs. It's not strictly consistent. You'll find frame rates on the DVR recording varies by a few frames per second. I've seen in my recordings anywhere from as down as 24 frames a second, but to up to as many as 27 frames a second and even 29 frames a second. So the DVR is a little bit inconsistent. That's what we found. And one of the struggles with micros really for me in this channel was getting a good DVR. That's why I use the goggles that I do, is because those goggles and the DVR are very, very consistent. As far as the video inspector information, I have that here on screen, and you can look at that if you'd like to. You can see the file that I've got on there. It shows you the bit rate, it shows you the resolution, it shows you the codec used, the IBM Motion Peg. It's the typical codec that we find in most DVRs. Let's take a look at the screen here at the desk. You can see I'm getting fingerprints on this. Let's go ahead and get into the menu system. So as we scroll through these things, you see each and every menu on here, and you have the ability to change those values as you go through it. Probably the most interesting thing you want to look at is the video mode. Let me go down to that. That could have varying. So we've got D1, HD, which depending upon your source, it might not be HD, and VGA. Those are the three video modes. Of course, I recorded in D1, and I didn't find any difference in the recording from one to the next. So that's either because I was using the same source type, or the DVR and that format just don't have any relationship. It only has to do with the screen. You can also access the DVR through the menuing system, and you could play back. So if you have a lost quad, or you just want to replay a flight for someone, you could put this in here and maybe swap out your SD cards between your goggle and this little guy if you choose to do that. So a pretty nice little panel, and coming in at $73, it's pretty reasonable, but it has a fairly specific use case. So if you're looking at this panel and you're wondering if you need it, take a look at it. I found it very pleasing. I will probably actually keep this one for my bench use rather than the 800Ds that I showed earlier in the video, just because they're going to consume less space and it is a little nicer to look at. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please let me know in the section down below. I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.